I am Goose.
I am Logan.
We're at the Union Cemetery.
Yep. So, you'll be wondering, why are you bothering? Why are you going to a cemetery?
Yeah, of all places in the world, why are you going to a cemetery? Apparently this is, by the way, we're
one of the oldest, or the oldest cemetery in
California. Yeah, it has been here since the gold rush. By the way, we're in my hometown, Redwood City, California. And again, this is one of the oldest cemeteries in California. Been here since the gold rush. And always, you know, kind of like want to drive by and stuff like that. But today they're giving a tour. We're a little late, but we're going to see if we can catch up to the tour. Yep, and learn some stuff about the people that are buried here. Got a whole family plot here. And look, these tombstones are not made out of cement. These are wood. These are wood headstones.
Huh. Some of them are faded, so you wonder if there's going to be a restoration thing. Like this. I can find the Laura's headstone over there. It's barely even readable.
Yeah.
How many of you have driven north on El Camino, right where I believe the old AAA building is? The name of the last street in Redwood City before San Carlos is?
Finger.
That's correct. And the Fingers lived. I'll pass it on this magnificent farm and orchard on the property that's on the north side of Finger. They also ran sort of a picnic area there where you could come with your group and such. And their house is still there.
Oh, wow.
I got to go in it right before Christmas. It's amazing. The fellow that lives there is taking good care of it. It backs right up to Cordilleras Creek, which is the border between Redwood City and San Carlos. So Mina Finger was an extremely well-loved person. She was born in Germany in 1827, and she was well known for being the person who took care of the trains, as they said. And sometimes she would feed as many as 30 people a day. When it came to her gate, it said that the latch string which opened the gate was hanging on the outside, which is kind of backwards if you want security, but it was open for people to come in and get help. Obviously they had fruit trees and such, and she was very generous with the food that she had. And she did have her own children, but she also adopted 5 children. She adopted the 5 children and gave them a very happy home, and when she passed away in the 1900s, one of her foster children was with her by her side the whole time. She took part in the very first 4th of July parade that happened in Redwood City. And then 50 years later, right before she died, she took part in that parade, sitting in a wagon drawn by mules, waving at everybody. And 50 years later, in 1909, she did the same thing in a car.
Wow.
She is said to be the only woman in the United States entitled to a pension for personal services because she acted as a nurse during the Mexican War. Her husband had enrolled in the Army, and she was like, oh, it's not all about me, so she did too. And she went along as a nurse, and she was actually given a medal at the Centennial Exposition in 1876 for all of her good work. And I don't know if she actually collected her pension, but she was entitled to a government pension for the work that she had done.
She was entitled to it, but didn't collect it because her paperwork.
Nothing's changed, right?
Sarah Wallace and her husband and her son right here. You can see the stone that's installed in there. Sarah's my favorite resident of Union Cemetery here. There's a local historian who called her the almost forgotten heroine. She's got quite a story, and I could probably talk about her all day. Sarah was born Sarah Armstrong in 1825 in Ohio. And she was born to a family that was really interested in the westward expansion. Her parents pretty quickly moved the family to Indiana, where they had 2 more children. So Sarah had a brother and a sister. And at some point here, both the parents die. I'm not sure when, I'm not sure how, but all 3 children went to work for different families. And Sarah is the hired help in Dr. John Townsend's house. In 1844, Dr. Townsend wanted to head to California with what's called the Stephen Townsend Murphy Party. Has anybody ever heard of them? Nope. Well, Sarah joins this party. She marries Alan Montgomery 2 months before they leave, and the Stephen Townsend Murphy Party takes off for California. They are the first wagon train to successfully cross the Sierra Nevadas. They started as a party of 11 wagons and 50 people, and they made it to California with 6 wagons and 52 people. There were 2 babies born along the way.
Wow.
They wintered with, is it John Sutter at Sutter's Fort? And that's where Sarah learned to read and write, by watching a child take their lessons. They almost didn't make it. They were caught in a storm, and Stevens, who was their leader, had a vision of a tunnel. And so he took off and he found this tunnel that they were able to, they unhitched the ox, they put the ox through, they pushed the wagons through. That's when they had to leave some of their wagons behind. So we don't know. But the question is, why don't we know the Stephen Townsend Murphy Party? 2 years later, the Donner Party came along, and we talked about that.
Oh.
They make it to California. Stevens would be named like Stevens Creek Boulevard. Murphy would be like the town Murphys. Dr. Townsend and his wife went to Santa Clara Valley. They treated cholera patients, and they both ended up contracting cholera and died. Sarah and her husband went to San Francisco. Not for long, because her husband boarded a ship for Hawaii and didn't return.
No.
So then Sarah marries a man named Talbot Howard Green. They're very happy. She's pregnant with their child. He's very well liked, and everybody wants him to run for mayor of San Francisco. And he's kind of a shoo-in because everybody really, really liked him. And then a tabloid came out and said, hold up, Talbot Green is not Talbot Green. He's actually Paul Getty's, and he's wanted in Pennsylvania for Bayfront. And he's got a family there. Talbot says, I'll take care of this, it's fine. He heads back to Pennsylvania and decides he wants to stay with his family there.
Wow.
So then Sarah marries a man named Talbot Howard Green. They're very happy. She's pregnant with their child. He's very well liked, and everybody wants him to run for mayor of San Francisco. And he's kind of a shoo-in because everybody really, really liked him. And then a tabloid came out and said, hold up, Talbot Green is not Talbot Green. He's actually Paul Getty's, and he's wanted in Pennsylvania for Bayfront. And he's got a family there. Talbot says, I'll take care of this, it's fine. He heads back to Pennsylvania and decides he wants to stay with his family there.
Wow.
So he divorces Sarah, and in the divorce settlement, she got a lot of money. She ended up being able to acquire about, I think it's 250 acres in South Palo Alto that was called Mayfield. And she owned that property. She did have that child. His name was Talbot. And then she married Joseph Wallace, Judge Wallace. But married women couldn't own property. So she owned her property until she married Joseph Wallace, and then it had to go in his name. But Sarah and Joseph became really interested in women's rights. The right to vote, the right to own property. She became leading the Women's Suffrage Association. In 1870, they founded the Mayfield Women's Suffrage Organization, and in 1873, Sarah became the first president of the California State Women's Suffrage Educational Association. She hosted Ulysses S. Grant, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Stanton in her home in Mayfield. She lobbied the state legislators for the women's right to vote, for women's right to own property. She would go down to LA and gather signatures, and she'd go up to Sacramento to lobby the legislators. And because of all of that travel, she was actually the reason that they installed the California Avenue station in Palo Alto, so that she could, because that was by her home, so she could travel up and down the state much easier. Sarah lost her fortune in the Depression of 1877. They sold their mansion. they built a smaller home where there's actually a park in her name. Do you have a picture of the park? No. Maggie has it. Here's just a little park named Sarah Wallace Park. She moved in with her son in Los Gatos, where she died in 1905 of natural causes. I mentioned that the local historian calls her the almost forgotten heroine. He says that he calls her that because she was guilty of a few incriminating sins. These included being born a woman, not being photographed, avoiding journalists, dying poor, and being a leader in a cause that succeeded only after her death. So she died in 1905, and in 1911, California gave women the right to vote. And then the 19th Amendment in 1920 gave women across the country the right to vote. So you can see the headstone was installed in the 100-year anniversary of women's right to vote. So this is Sarah.
So we're here to talk about a person who is not buried here. We're here to talk about Jean Cloud and the original Historic Union Cemetery Association. I don't know, you said you were born and raised here and you knew Jean Cloud, which is lovely. She was related to Roy Cloud School. Back in the 1980s, this place was a garbage dump. Everything was overgrown, there were weeds, there were beer bottles, there were firecrackers. Jean Cloud and Nita Spangler and John Edmonds and any number of other people got together, formed a group, collected money, and started the process of putting the cemetery back to where it is. In addition to that, at one point, the city wanted to make this into a soccer field or a baseball field. So they fought long and hard against that, and they won. And here we are. So yay, Jean Cloud and company. That's a really great thing that they did. Remember the Cooley Frisbee fence, the white fence we saw? Here's an example of some of the things that they did. This is what it looked like when in the 1980s, 1990s. It was smashed. This particular project was put together by Eagle Scouts. Most of it was done by the hookah board and the volunteers. We have lost a lot of headstones. You'll see lots of them are broken off or completely gone. I think there's two reasons they're gone. One, because it was fun to break them and take them. But I also think family members took them because they thought, this place is a mess, I'm going to take it and take care of it. And I think there's headstones leaning in garages all over the Bay Area. And at some point, we're going to really make a push to try to get some of them returned because we'll take care of them and we want them where they belong.
Hannah G. Brooks.
1867.
Yeah, so this is Hannah Gray Brooks, and it's another one of the very beautiful. I encourage you to go up and look at it. It's incredibly detailed. There's like fine little stems off the flowers. It's gorgeous. So definitely get in there and take a look. It's fine to walk
is that the actual burial site, or is that just where you put
This is her burial site, yeah.
Because it doesn't look like it, really.
Yeah. So Hannah Gray Brooks is an interesting character here in the cemetery. She was born in 1809 in North Carolina, and born to pioneer family. They were interested in heading south. They were interested in the southwest expansion. They wanted to go to Texas. Her parents moved her to Tennessee in 1820, and that's where she met Pleasant Gray. And she married Pleasant, and in total they would have 8 children together. Pleasant headed to Texas in 1834 and brought Hannah, I call her Sarah, sorry, brought Hannah with him, and they had 3 children at the time. I know this because in order to buy property, it was Mexico at the time, not Texas, you had to have 3 children, and they just had their third child, so they were able to buy property. And they actually founded the town of Huntsville, Texas. It was a trading post. Pleasant was interested in taking part in the gold rush. So in 1849, he and his eldest son, Mike Gray, took off for California. Pleasant didn't make it. He died of cholera on the way. Mike did arrive in California, and eventually in 1856 he went back and he got Hannah and all of his siblings and moved them out to California. They actually lived in Yuba County. What's interesting is Hannah never lived down here in San Mateo County. She was in Yuba County. She married, after Pleasant died, she married John Brooks. And She died in the home of her son, Mike Gray, in 1867. Mike had a home in San Mateo County. So I think that's why she's buried here. What's interesting about Hannah is she kept very meticulous records in her family Bible of births and deaths. And what's interesting is she was a very strong supporter in the Southern cause in the Civil War. So she kept records in her Bible. The family actually has a couple of their own books that they've written about the Gray family. And in it was written that Hannah was living in California. Oh, let me back up. In 1850, so her husband Pleasant died in 1849. The 1850 slave records indicate that Hannah held 5 slaves, probably left to her by her husband. The family history book says Hannah was living in California, a state which entered the Union as a free state in 1850, and where opinions about slavery ran strong in most communities. She must have had to hold her tongue on that political issue, but she expressed her feelings by saving pro-Southern items from newspapers. Perhaps she maintained correspondence with old friends in Texas who sent her these propaganda clippings. In her Bible, there's a picture of a Confederate ship, the Alabama. There's clippings about the siege of Vicksburg and the Battle of St. Paul in New Orleans. She obviously followed the war in the western sector of the South, and there are patriotic poems and songs urging the Southern cause written into her Bible. To my knowledge, she is the only Confederate sympathizer buried in the Union Cemetery. An email from one of her descendants, she wrote, "I do wonder what this ardent Confederate buried in a Union cemetery would think."
So I had said there wasn't going to be a quiz, but there is.
No.
What is GAR? I told you.
Grand Army of the Republic.
Grand Army of the Republic. This is the plot for the Grand Army of the Republic. The men that were honorably discharged from the Union Army after the Civil War. None of these people died in the Civil War. All of them immigrated to California and passed on naturally here. Except for the one over there with the red stake. That is James Peace. James Peace was a good buddy of all these guys. Good drinking buddy, friend buddy. Was never in the Army, however. But he did raise the first American flag over San Mateo County. So he got an honorable spot in the GAR. The soldier statue was put up in the 1890s, and it was knocked down 3 times. Once it was only up for 2 days, when some vandals came and pulled it down again. So for many years, a couple of decades, a human being would stand there on our Memorial Day celebration and take the place of the soldier. But it's been there for a long time now, and I think he's going to be okay.
Was there any indication of what the motivation of the vandalism was?
Yes, vandals. Just kids. Vandals. Just doing it for fun. Speaking of Memorial Day, on May 30th at 10, we'll have our Memorial Day event that we've had since 1889. We'll have speakers and music and grandstands and an anvil firing. Who knows what an anvil firing is?
I don't.
So, crazy people take one anvil and put it on the ground, fill it with gunpowder, turn another one over on top of it, light a fuse between them, and shoot the anvil up in the air. We had a test firing on Thursday and it went great, so we're going to do it. I'm glad I didn't live there. Well, normally I've seen it many times, and most of the time it sets off every car alarm, every dog. But this one was pretty quiet. It wasn't too bad. But
how far up in the air does it go? How high up into the air?
It went about 20 feet. Sometimes it goes higher, sometimes lower. And I believe it weighs either 74 or 94 pounds. And it gets shown straight up in the air. But we had the fire marshal here, and she said it's fine. Don't worry.
Who paid for this and why?
The statue?
The statue.
Originally, Mrs. Leland Stanford helped pay for it. And why? Because he's a Union soldier, and this is Union Cemetery, and he's guarding his fellow Union soldiers.
Why was she motivated to pay for it?
She believed in GAR. GAR was an enormously popular and well thought of organization. Okay. It went defunct in 1951 because the last person died. But they were very highly thought of as veterans and war heroes. They won the war, after all. Yeah.
Well, that was an unexpected experience. I learned a lot from doing this.
Yeah, as I was saying. So when Miss Cindy first brought this up, I was like, why would we want to go?
Why would we go to a cemetery? Yeah, people don't travel to go to cemeteries, but then again, people kind of like, you know, they go to cemeteries and there's a lot of famous people buried in some.
Yeah, but this isn't like a celebrity bury.
No,
place.
as a matter of fact, you know, this when they said this was a Union cemetery, I thought that was the name of the cemetery. No, they're Union soldiers are buried here. And
Like they were showing us the Grand Army of the Republic plot. That's all, except for one person that they were all members of the Union.
yeah,
Army.
they got Union soldiers buried here. They got family of Union soldiers buried here. They you know, everybody here has an interesting story, and you even got a book that's gonna, you know, has some of the stories that
Because
people are buried here.
this has got the ones that were in the tour, ones that weren't, and plus I figured whoever the ones that didn't come with us might like to read through it as well.
Yeah.
The tour was so interesting. There's probably a lot of other interesting stuff in the book.
So the Union Cemetery here in Redwood City is off of Woodside Road. It is considered what they said, it's a park now, and so it's open for the public to come and see.
Yeah, so nobody is buried here anymore. So the latest person was almost 50 years ago.
Yeah,
1963. So
What they've been saying is that there have been a lot of people who come here to vandalize the place, and we're kind of like, you know what, just kind of, you know, keep it the way it is. Don't desecrate someone's grave. This is it's not, you know, just not right.
no, it's not.
But we learned a lot coming here.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things where we call it an unexpected trip. That being said, if there's any place else they want to check us out at, where would they go?
You can find us over on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio at Robert Goose Scott. We can find our 2 podcasts, On With the Show and Wrestling Boys, about entertainment and pro wrestling, respectively. And if you do want to contact us, those, you can find us over on Twitter at On With the Show 3 and Wrestling Boys 2 as well. We also have a Twitter for Travel by Nature. That is Travel by Nature, spelled the exact same way as it is here on YouTube. And we have an Instagram for that. That is Travel by Nature_IG.
If there's anything they want to help us out with the channel, what would they do?
Can hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share your friends.
Yeah, subscribe to the channel. It makes us smile. That being said, I am Goose.
I am Logan.
From the Union Cemetery here in Redwood City, California. This is Travel by Nature. Have a good day.